about what I like to do today. We've got a lot of rides. You know, some of these at the very bottom are kind of important to talk about. I think Teacups is probably one of the easier rides to place because of how generic its theming is. So I'll pop it down here. What's notable about Teacups is mostly the vibes. Whenever you place one of these down, it's super easy to theme. You usually see these Teacups rides at various parks that are heavily themed. And ultimately, if you wanted to make paths for these that would make sense for the amount of people that would go through them, I would say it's probably something looking a little bit more like this. And this is like maybe 1.5 times the amount of people that'll actually fit in the ride queue, as will be on the ride. It has a capacity of 72 somehow. Teacups can, in fact, reach a max prestige of 300 if we move some stuff around. But essentially it's clockwise, anti, clockwise, clockwise, anti to get the ride sequence which will net the most money that you can get out of these. We're going to set that to test and see what it ends up with in just a second. Comes up with a prestige of 306, which if you remember some of the numbers from my guide, you'll see that the scenery bonus can get clear up to 200 more. So this would be a number of like closer to 506 instead of 306. Because it's relatively flat, the lightning strike risk is quite low. We've got 4 test dummies per cup, and we've got 18 cups total, amounting to 72, which I said earlier. The stats on these are relatively low. The fact that it's only 2 nausea is actually quite a good thing, but it's got relatively lackluster stats besides. This ride is notably almost 5 minutes long, so guests will be on it for a very long time. When it runs for longer and it uses up the guests' time well, it's a better way to extract wealth from guests. And generally speaking, if you're balancing out your park well enough, then you shouldn't have many guests in the queue at any given time. Of course, this is the bargain pricing, it's $760. On the average, which is the more important number that you would need to look for, it makes about $2.07, which on my Flat Rides research statistics sheet, it comes up about 60th down the line. Now remember, the number one ride that can get the most money from the guests is $5.09 per second. So there's a bit of a shift there, but consider that you can get Teacups from the get-go. It might be on the lower half of the sheet, but overall, this will still make you something, especially after you add in some scenery too. Because of its timing, it can be a little bit problematic for mechanics to come in and fix it when they need to. So for instance, if I were to open this up and let it play for long enough, if I had a mechanic in the park and this was needing to be serviced down like here or so, and it just started another cycle, that mechanic is sitting at this exit gate for 4 minutes and about a quarter, just waiting to take care of the ride in the way that it needs to. And in that time, it can actually break down. That's obviously not really something you want. So your alternatives here are to either just bear the cost of whatever happens afterward, or to keep an eye on it and manually refurbish more often. And this is largely because the expiration date on these rides ends up deteriorating slower than the ride condition does, which is a lovely side effect of Update 8. All important things to keep in mind. Ultimately, Teacups isn't going to cost you that much to fix, so it's not that big of a deal, to be honest. Because of the size of Teacups, it means that loading and unloading is actually slightly longer than a lot of rides. So what you won't see from the Flat Rides research guide that I have posted around on the interwebs is taking into account all of the time that guests will be spending getting into the Teacups to begin with. And of course, I can't account for everything, so like having this exit here is on purpose because I don't want guests to look like they're clipping through this building when they're coming off the ride. I could reasonably move the exit here, but if I tried to open it again, then, you know, whenever guests are coming off the ride, or a mechanic's coming through to service this box, he has to go clear around and clips through the ride operator. Obviously things you don't want. Being something that you have when you start up a new world, it's got a relatively high throughput, lots of people can ride it, it's got a long ride time. It still reaches Classic. It's one of many rides that can reach Classic now. There are only 3 in the game that can't, and we'll talk about those in the near future. But you know, I think at the end of the day, it's kind of a middle of the pack sort of ride. It'll do the job. You might expect it to break down every now and again. So I'm actually thinking maybe a 2-star ride, to be honest. It's not that it underperforms, it's just there are better options. And if you have access to those better options, you probably would rather pick those. What Teacups is really good at doing is making more of your guests happy on the whole, putting them all in one place. So this could be really good if you have a lot of stalls and shops nearby for like gift related reasons. So having 72 people leave a ride all at once can be a little overwhelming for some of your shops. So if you surround them after this ride, so if you have the exit like right here and they exit into them, then you'll probably get more sales from those things. Although this might not be as useful for food and drink as it used to be, if you set up some gift shops, then it might be worth it to you. And with that all said, I think C is probably about where Teacups belongs. It's only barely making that 500 prestige number with the scenery bonus on top of manipulating some of its ride sequencing. And that's not something that people will always do or be aware of. So that's where it belongs. That's it for this ride review. Thank you for watching. Have a good day, etc. Okay, I want to do Twitch things now. I've been meaning to get back to this because I did it a long time ago, like 2 weeks ago, and